If you've met your soulmate, you'll feel seen, safe, and deeply understood. Conversations flow, silence comforts, and growth feels natural. You share direction, whether conflict with peace, and feel an unexplainable pull. It's not fairy tale love, it's real, grounding, and enduring. They don't complete you, they meet you. There's something incredibly rare about meeting someone with whom everything just flows. You don't have to force conversation. You don't have to overthink your words. You don't have to perform or present some ideal version of yourself. You can just be, and that's enough. When the connection is effortless, it doesn't mean there's no work involved. It means the work feels natural, like breathing. It's not heavy or draining. It energizes you. You leave interactions feeling more full, not more tired. It starts in the smallest moments. You text them and they respond in a way that makes you smile, not just because of what they said, but because they saw you. You sit next to them and silence feels comforting, not awkward. There's no pressure to fill every moment with words. Presence is enough. That's rare. In a world so loud, to find someone whose quiet fits with yours is a quiet kind of miracle. You find yourself saying things you didn't expect to share, things you've kept locked up or only hinted at in fragments. But with them, it spills out and they hold it with gentleness. They don't try to fix you. They just listen, and somehow that listening feels like healing. You feel understood without having to draw a map to your heart. Laughter comes easy. Inside jokes are born without effort. There's a rhythm between you that's unspoken but deeply felt. You interrupt each other and laugh about it. You finish each other's thoughts not because you're trying to be cute, but because you really do think along the same lines. And when you don't, it's still easy. Differences don't feel threatening. They feel like texture adding depth, not conflict. You don't constantly wonder where you stand. You don't need to dissect every word or analyze every text. You don't have to chase clarity or beg for attention. There's a calm assurance in the connection. You feel seen not just when you're at your best, but when you're raw, confused, or lost, and still they're there, still leaning in, still choosing you. With them, time shifts. Hours pass like minutes. You lose track, not because you're distracted, but because you're present, fully present. That's what effortless connection does. It invites you into the moment and keeps you there. It's not perfect. There are still disagreements, still off days, but the baseline is steady. Even when you're off track, you both want to find your way back. And most of the time, it doesn't take much a look, a laugh, a shared memory, and you're back in sync. That's the beauty of it, the ease, not because life gets easier, but because facing it with someone who fits you makes even the hard parts feel lighter. There's no checklist, no manual, no strategy. Just two people who meet in the middle and find, to their surprise, that they already understand the rhythm. Deep emotional safety is one of the most profound feelings you can experience with another person. It goes beyond comfort, beyond affection, beyond even love as it's commonly portrayed. It's the quiet, unwavering sense that you can be completely yourself, unfiltered, unguarded, and raw, and still be held with care. When you've met someone who gives you this kind of safety, your walls begin to lower, not because they ask you to, but because something in you knows it's finally okay to rest. It begins with the subtle cues. They don't flinch when you talk about your past. They don't judge the parts of you that you usually keep hidden. You share something vulnerable, maybe even ugly, and instead of recoiling, they lean in. They see your broken pieces and don't try to fix them. They just sit with you in the truth of it. And that, strangely enough, is what helps you heal. There's no need to perform. You don't have to be happy all the time or strong or put together. You don't fear being too much or not enough. When you're with them, your emotions are valid, all of them. You can cry and not apologize for it. You can express frustration, confusion, or even irrational fear, and they won't weaponize it later. They won't use your vulnerability against you. That kind of trust is sacred. When you're emotionally safe with someone, even conflict looks different. It's not about winning. It's not about keeping score. It's about understanding. There's room to say the hard things without fear that it will destroy everything. You know you won't be punished for being honest. You don't have to tiptoe around their ego or hide your needs. You speak, and they listen not just to respond, but to understand where you're coming from. You're not made to feel guilty for your feelings. You're not called dramatic or too sensitive or overthinking. They don't dismiss your pain with cliches or tell you to just get over it. They meet you where you are, And even if they don't fully understand what you're feeling, they make the effort to walk with you through it. That effort, that presence is what creates safety. What's powerful about deep emotional safety is that it allows you to grow, not by pretending to be someone you're not, but by finally being free to become more of who you are. When you're no longer in survival mode, when you're not constantly editing yourself or watching your back, you begin to unfold. You begin to expand. With emotional safety comes a quiet confidence. You trust that if you fall apart, someone will help you gather the pieces. You trust that if you shine, they won't dim your light. You trust that love in its truest form can be a safe place to land, not just a thrilling place to escape to. And that trust changes everything. There are moments in life when words fail, when even the most carefully chosen phrases can't fully express what's stirring beneath the surface. That's when unspoken understanding steps in, a silent, powerful language that exists between two people who are deeply connected. It's not about mind reading. It's about presence, about knowing someone so well that you can sense their feelings before they say a word. When you experience this kind of connection, it feels like being seen with your soul, not just your senses. It happens in the smallest ways. A glance across a room and they know you're uncomfortable. The slight change in your tone and they catch the worry behind your smile. They pick up on your energy without needing an explanation. You don't have to script your feelings or explain your moods. They just get it. And in return, you find yourself doing the same for them, responding to the unsaid with a kind of intuitive care that doesn't come from instruction, but from closeness. This level of understanding doesn't develop overnight. It's built through time, through shared experiences, through watching each other closely, not in a controlling way, but in a deeply attentive one. They remember the things you said in passing. They notice the way you withdraw when something's wrong. They can tell the difference between your "I'm fine," that means "I really am okay," and the one that means "please ask me again." And they do ask again, not out of obligation, but out of love. There's comfort in this wordless connection. You don't feel pressured to constantly explain yourself. You don't fear being misunderstood every time you're not at your best. You can sit in silence together and still feel completely in sync. The quiet doesn't feel empty. It feels full of trust, of mutual understanding, of something deep that doesn't require constant articulation to be real. Unspoken understanding also shows up in timing. They know when to lean in and when to give space. They can tell when you need comfort and when you need quiet. They notice what energizes you and what drains you, often before you do. It's a kind of emotional choreography, a subtle dance between two people who know each other's rhythms without needing to rehearse. What makes this so rare is that it requires not just attention, but empathy. Not just closeness, but intention. It's not about being right all the time or always knowing the perfect thing to say. It's about being so attuned to another person that even your imperfections feel safe in their presence. When you're upset and can't find the words, they sit beside you without needing a script. When you're excited and don't know how to contain it, they light up with you effortlessly. In a world that constantly demands, we explain, justify, and package our emotions into palatable sound bites. Having someone who just understands without asking for more, that's a rare kind of grace. It doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It just needs to be true. When two people share a vision for the future, it creates a sense of alignment that goes far beyond the day-to-day moments of connection. It's not just about chemistry, compatibility, or the ability to enjoy each other's company. It's about knowing that your lives are moving in the same direction. There's a sense of shared purpose, of mutual understanding about what matters, and a willingness to build something lasting together. This doesn't mean every detail has to match, but the foundation, the values, the dreams, the long-term desires feels undeniably in sync. You start to notice that your conversations naturally drift toward the future, not in a pressured or forced way, but with curiosity and excitement. You talk about the kind of life you want to live, the places you'd like to go, the legacy you hope to leave. You talk about how you want to grow, both as individuals and together. And as you talk, something clicks. You're not just dreaming out loud. You're dreaming in the same direction. With a shared vision, compromise stops feeling like sacrifice. Instead, it becomes part of the process. You're willing to adjust, to meet halfway, to take turns leading and following, not because you're trying to keep the peace, but because you believe in what you're building. You trust that their dreams won't swallow yours, and they trust the same in return. There's room for both to exist because the larger picture holds space for each person's path. This kind of alignment shows up in practical ways too. You find agreement on what stability looks like, what kind of lifestyle you're both aiming for, whether or not family is part of the plan, what your financial values are, how you deal with challenges, and what kind of home you want to create physically, emotionally, spiritually. These conversations may not always be easy, but they feel necessary and grounding. They give you a roadmap. Even when you're not sure of every turn ahead, you know you're not walking alone. Having a shared vision also brings clarity in moments of doubt. When life throws curvy balls, as it always does, you don't question whether the relationship can survive it. You've already decided you're in this together. You've already agreed on the direction. So even when things get messy, you both know why you're holding on. And it's not just about planning. It's about the energy between you. You're excited about the same kinds of things. You find meaning in similar pursuits. You both want to grow, and more importantly, you want to grow in ways that support each other's evolution. There's no silent competition, no hidden resentment, just partnership. When the future doesn't feel like a negotiation but a collaboration, love becomes something more than romance. It becomes a shared project, a living, breathing thing that you're both actively shaping. And in that shared vision, you find not just possibility, but peace. There's a distinct difference between being pushed to grow and feeling inspired to grow. In the right relationship, one built on mutual respect, love, and understanding, personal growth doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like possibility. It emerges naturally, almost effortlessly, not because someone is demanding that you change, but because being around them brings out parts of you that were waiting to be seen. You don't feel like you have to become someone else. You feel free to become more of who you already are. In that space, change feels safe. You start to take risks you might have avoided before. You try new things, confront old fears, and let go of patterns that no longer serve you. And you don't do it to impress them. You do it because their presence gently reminds you of your potential. Their belief in you begins to echo louder than your own self-doubt. It's not loud encouragement, it's steady reassurance. They see your strength before you do, and over time, that vision helps you see it too. Growth becomes part of your dynamic. You evolve individually, but it doesn't pull you apart. It brings you closer. When one of you levels up in life, the other doesn't feel left behind. They feel proud, inspired, ready to rise too. There's no jealousy, no resentment, no fear that change will mean distance. Instead, there's excitement about what's next. You both want to see each other win, and not just in the big things, but in the everyday moments that build a meaningful life. You also feel more accountable, not in a heavy, guilt-driven way, but in a conscious, loving one. You start to notice the places where you've settled for less, where you've avoided hard conversations, where fear held the reins, and you begin to shift. Not because they told you to, but because something about being loved well makes you want to love yourself better too. It's a subtle but powerful transformation. The relationship becomes a mirror, not just reflecting your beauty, but also the areas that need attention. And because it's rooted in safety and care, you're more open to looking in that mirror without flinching. You can take feedback without feeling attacked. You can admit faults without feeling broken. Growth isn't tied to shame, it's tied to freedom. There's also something grounding in knowing that they're growing too. You witness each other's journeys, each other's stumbles, each other's milestones, and you cheer and you hold space and you learn how to adapt, not just to change, but to each other's evolving needs and dreams. In a connection like this, love doesn't become a reason to stay the same. It becomes the reason you bloom. You don't have to choose between being loved and becoming your best self. You get both. Because the right person doesn't clip your wings, they help you remember how to fly. There's something deeply grounding about being with someone who becomes your calm in the storm. Life is unpredictable, full of highs, lows, curvy balls, and messes you never saw coming. But when you're with someone who gives you peace in the midst of all that, everything changes. The chaos doesn't stop. The noise doesn't go away, but suddenly you have a center, a person who doesn't make things perfect, but makes them feel possible. Someone who reminds you, even in the worst moments, that you're not facing it alone. With them, conflict doesn't feel like war. Disagreements might still happen, and emotions may still run high, but there's an underlying stability that never wavers. You don't feel like love is on the line every time things get hard. You don't walk away from arguments wondering if this is the end. Even when you're hurt or frustrated, there's a mutual understanding that the connection is stronger than the chaos. That's rare and powerful. They listen without rushing to fix. They sit with you in discomfort, in silence, in uncertainty. And somehow, just their presence makes it easier to breathe. You can fall apart and know that they'll be there not judging, not trying to take control, just holding space until you're ready to stand again. It's not about them having all the answers. It's about their willingness to be in it with you, whatever it looks like. You start to notice that even when everything around you is falling apart, they're steady, not emotionless, but solid. You don't have to manage their reactions while trying to survive your own. Their calm becomes contagious. It reminds you to slow down, to pause, to stay grounded in the middle of whatever storm is passing through your life. They don't try to distract you from your pain, they help you move through it. There's also something incredibly healing about being able to be your full self in moments of chaos. You don't have to wear the brave face. You don't have to pretend you've got it all figured out. You can be messy, uncertain, overwhelmed, and still loved. That kind of acceptance creates room for real healing. You start to believe that maybe you're not too much. Maybe your struggles don't make you unlovable. Maybe you can be fully human and still fully held. Even in their own chaos, they don't disappear. They know how to be present even when they're hurting. That mutual presence, the willingness to stay close, even when it's hard, is what keeps the bond unshakable. It's not that you never break down. It's that when you do, someone is there helping you rebuild. Peace in chaos doesn't mean life is quiet. It means you found someone who makes it quieter inside. Someone whose love is a steady rhythm in a world that never stops moving. Someone who makes you feel, even on the worst days, that everything will somehow be okay. There are connections that make sense on paper. You share common interests, you align on values, and everything checks out logically. Then there's a different kind of connection, one that defies logic entirely, a pull you can't explain. You meet them and something inside you shifts. There's no calculation, no checklist, no trying to make sense of it. You just feel it. It's magnetic, electric, and strangely familiar, like recognizing something you didn't know you were missing. It's not about butterflies or infatuation. It's deeper than that. It's in the way they look at you, and suddenly you feel like someone has finally seen you, not just the version of you you've curated for the world, but the raw, unfiltered you underneath. There's a quiet knowing, a sense that your paths were meant to cross, even if everything about it seems unlikely. It's not about perfection or timing. It's about something in your soul recognizing something in theirs. From the very beginning, there's a sense of ease, even in the intensity. You don't need to pretend, and you don't feel the urge to run. It's as though some invisible thread has been pulling you toward each other long before your lives ever touched. And once they do, it's hard to remember what life was like without them in it. You carry them with you, even when they're not around, even in silence, even in distance. Sometimes the pull shows up in moments of joy, a shared laugh that feels like home, a conversation that flows like you've known each other forever. But often it reveals itself in vulnerability. When you open up and they don't flinch, when you break down and they stay, when everything feels uncertain and they become the one thing that doesn't. There's an emotional gravity to them, something that keeps drawing you back no matter how far you wander. This pull doesn't always arrive quietly. It can feel disruptive, confusing even. You may try to talk yourself out of it, to rationalize it away, but something deeper keeps insisting this matters. And the more you try to ignore it, the louder it gets. Because it's not just attraction or chemistry or compatibility. It's connection on a level that can't be mapped or measured. A collision of two stories that were somehow always meant to intertwine. You notice that their presence changes things, not just in your schedule or your routines, but in your heart. They make you braver, softer, more open to life. They don't complete you, but they awaken something that was dormant. They remind you of who you were before the world told you who to be. This isn't about fantasy or fate in some romanticized sense. It's about feeling something real, something rare without needing to explain it. A pull that doesn't beg for definition, only recognition. And when you stop fighting it, when you lean in, you realize it's not about where it's going. It's about the fact that it exists at all. Love that's rooted in reality doesn't always come wrapped in grand gestures or picture-perfect moments. It isn't built on fantasy or the flawless image we often see in movies or scroll past on social media. It's something quieter, deeper, and far more enduring. It begins where idealism ends, where two people see each other clearly, with all the cracks and contradictions, and choose each other anyway. Not because it's always easy, but because it's real. This kind of love is honest. It doesn't avoid hard conversations or pretend everything is fine when it's not. It faces the mess head on. It says, I see your baggage and I'm not running from it. It doesn't gloss over the rough edges or downplay the pain. Instead, it makes space for both beauty and brokenness. It understands that true intimacy isn't built through perfection. It's built through presence, even when things are hard. There's a groundedness to it. You're not chasing a version of who you wish someone would be. You're loving them as they are right now. And in turn, you don't feel like you have to perform or fit into some polished mold to be loved back. You can be tired, overwhelmed, insecure, still learning, still healing, and they won't treat those things as reasons to love you less. They don't expect magic. They expect effort, and they give it too. It shows up in the way you handle the small, everyday moments, the dishes, the bills, the long days and late nights. It's in how you communicate when you're both stressed, how you navigate disappointment, how you show up for each other when life feels heavy. It's not about escaping reality together. It's about facing it side by side. Love that's rooted in reality also allows room for change. You don't freeze each other in time or cling to the way things used to be. You grow, you evolve. And instead of resisting those changes, you learn how to adapt together. You cheer for each other's growth, even when it challenges your routines or forces you to re-examine your own habits. You don't need to shrink to make the relationship work. Instead, the relationship expands to hold who you're becoming. There's grace in this kind of love. You're allowed to make mistakes, to be flawed, to say the wrong thing and make it right again. There's accountability, yes, but not punishment. There's forgiveness, not as a way to bypass pain, but as a way to move through it together. You both understand that love isn't just a feeling, it's a decision, a practice, a daily choice to show up. Most of all, it's sustainable. It doesn't burn hot and fast only to fade when things get real. It endures. It weathers storms. It's not fueled by drama or intensity, but by trust, respect, and a quiet commitment to keep building, even on the days when it would be easier to give up. And that's the kind of love that actually lasts. In the end, love that is truly meaningful isn't defined by fleeting moments or superficial ideals. It's found in the quiet, grounded understanding between two people who choose each other in the midst of life's chaos and imperfections. It's a connection that transcends the need for constant validation or dramatic gestures, rooted instead in real, honest moments of vulnerability, growth, and unwavering support. When love is grounded in reality, it becomes a steady force offering peace, strength, and a deep sense of safety, no matter what challenges arise. And in that space, both individuals can grow, evolve, and thrive, knowing they are seen, valued, and accepted for who they truly are.